Hey guys, today I'll show you a science fiction thriller TV series named The X-Files, Season 3, Part 2. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. The drama begins in an art studio where a long-haired life model sits at the front and the students diligently sketch the model's figure. Among them is a man named John who is different from the rest. He draws a portrait of a devil instead of the model. John seems a bit unhinged as he stares intensely at the model. When class ends, he hurriedly packs up and leaves. The model, now finished for the day, puts on his clothes and prepares to head home. However, when he tries to get into his car, he finds the keyhole deliberately blocked. Before he can figure out what's going on, John kills him with an X-Acto knife. The FBI worked quickly, arriving at John's house the next morning. During the arrest, one of the agents was bitten badly by him, proving he had truly gone mad. While searching John's home, the lead investigator found the utility knife that was used as the murder weapon. With the evidence in hand, John was locked up. The case seemed solved, but as always, fate had other plans. Just a week after his capture, another similar murder occurred. The victim was a young, handsome man, and the method was exactly the same. After killing the victim, the murderer slashed his face with a utility knife. The higher-ups decided to assign Mulder and Scully to investigate further. John was an unemployed artist who had murdered 7 young men. He appeared terrified, and his prison cell was filled with drawings of devilish figures. He told Mulder that it was the devil who killed the young men. Scully laughed her hair off, pointing out that there were no devilish fingerprints on the weapon, and that the devil wouldn't be the one to face execution. When he learned that another man had been murdered, he panicked, claiming that the devil had found a new host and was continuing the killings. The lead investigator had once been Mulder's superior. He had always looked down on Mulder because he believed in the supernatural. Mulder believed in the demon possession theory, but the lead investigator insisted that the murders were committed by an accomplice of John. Mulder visited John's home, where the walls were covered in drawings of devils. Behind one of the portraits was a secret room filled with fresh clay sculptures. When Mulder moved one of the sculptures, he discovered a body hidden inside. After further investigation, they found a total of 5 bodies, all with their faces slashed. Just as they were dealing with the overwhelming situation, the killer struck again. This time, however, the young victim survived, though terribly disfigured. Scully visited the hospital to check on the injured man and ran into another agent, the one who had been bitten by John at the start. From him, Scully learned that the lead investigator had been investigating John for 3 years. He had finally caught the killer, only to have similar murders occur again. Frustrated, the lead investigator applied to have Mulder and Scully join the investigation. Meanwhile, Mulder was in the library, researching cases of demon possession, and was ridiculed by the lead investigator for his methods. He insisted that it was John's accomplices committing the crimes, and mocked Mulder for believing in such supernatural nonsense. As Mulder became more absorbed in the case, Scully began to notice disturbing changes in him. He started decorating his apartment with devil drawings, just like the killer, and even visited the secret room where the killer had created clay figures of devils. There, Mulder discovered a shadowy figure and immediately gave chase. Unfortunately, he didn't catch the figure and ended up with a facial wound from a utility knife. Scully feared that Mulder, too, was becoming too immersed in the case and might lose himself. She later found a utility knife blade under his car. After testing, it was found to have Mulder's fingerprints on it. Scully went straight to the evidence room and confirmed that the utility knife found in Mulder's car was the same one used at the crime scene. Mulder insisted he had only touched the weapon but hadn't taken it. Despite years of knowing Mulder, Scully couldn't help but suspect him. Mulder's obsession with the case had taken a toll on his mental health. He began having frequent nightmares in which he saw the killer was actually the agent bitten by John and the lead investigator who had been overseeing the case. After waking from one such nightmare, Mulder went to John's secret room where he found a freshly made devil sculpture and some bloodstains. When he moved the clay on the sculpture, he uncovered the agent's body. Mulder turned around and saw the lead investigator standing behind him. The truth became clear. The lead investigator was the real killer. After John's capture, the lead investigator had taken over as his successor, continuing the series of murders. When the other agent found a clue, the lead investigator killed him to silence him, hiding his body in a sculpture. In response to Mulder's accusations, the lead investigator looked completely innocent, claiming he didn't know how he ended up there and couldn't remember committing the murders. It wasn't until he saw the clay on his hands that the truth dawned on him. Just as Mulder was about to arrest him, Scully arrived on the scene. Still suspicious that Mulder was the killer, she actually raised her gun at him. This gave the lead investigator the chance to escape. Mulder chased him up to the rooftop, where the lead investigator attacked him. After a brief struggle, Mulder knocked him unconscious. With the evidence now undeniable, the lead investigator was arrested. However, even in prison, he continued to shout that he was innocent. In the end, there was no demon at all. John killed all those handsome young men because he was simply a pervert. His mind was unhinged. But then, why did the lead investigator end up becoming the killer after John was caught? Let's rewind to the library scene. At that time, Mulder was researching cases of demon possession, and the lead investigator came in to mock Mulder for believing in such supernatural nonsense. Mulder replied that he learned to think this way from the lead investigator himself. He had been Mulder's superior and had once taught him that to understand monsters, you first had to become one. The lead investigator had been leading the investigation into the case, while John had committed 7 murders over a span of 3 years. Over the course of 3 years, the lead investigator had become so absorbed in studying the psychology of John that he inadvertently split into a personality that mirrored the killer's. After John's arrest, this alter ego didn't disappear. It started to mimic the killer's actions. In the secret room at John's house, they discovered dripping clay sculptures that clearly had been made recently. Later, 5 bodies were found inside the sculptures. This might suggest that before John's capture, the lead investigator had already begun copying his murders. By day, the lead investigator was a righteous agent. By night, he became an evil serial killer. After each murder, he would leave traces of clay on his hands. There's no way someone as experienced as the lead investigator wouldn't have noticed this. So, in fact, the lead investigator had probably already realized he was the killer. This is why he asked Mulder to join the investigation. But after his arrest, he insisted he was innocent, possibly because his main personality had been overtaken by his evil alter ego, and he was now trying to escape responsibility. Or maybe he simply couldn't accept the fact that he was the killer. The scene shifts to a French salvage ship arriving in a remote sea area, seemingly to recover something important from the depths. They send a diver named Gautier down to investigate. While underwater, Gautier discovers a World War II-era fighter plane. Strangely, there are loud banging sounds coming from inside the plane. At this point, Gautier's camera mysteriously loses all signal, and the crew above the surface is unable to monitor him. Still underwater, Gautier sees a living person inside the plane banging on its walls. Suddenly, the person's eyes turn completely black. Gautier is in shock. After dark, the crew finally regains contact with Gautier. Once back on board, Gautier appears normal, refusing to talk much about his underwater experience. However, as the camera zooms in, it becomes clear that Gautier's eyes have turned black. He's likely been possessed by the unknown life form from the deep. On the other side, Skinner tells Scully that the higher-ups have ordered the investigation into her sister's murder to be stopped. Scully knows the killers came from a mysterious organization, one that had originally targeted her, but mistakenly killed her sister instead. Both Scully and Skinner feel helpless and frustrated by fate's unfairness. Before Scully has had a chance to recover from her grief, she must dive into a new case. The French salvage ship, which had been out on a mission, experienced an accident shortly after Gautier returned to shore. The crew was severely injured by an unknown radiation. Oddly, only one person on board wasn't affected by the radiation. It's Gautier himself. Mulder and Scully arrive at the port, boarding the salvage ship. There's no sign of radiation aboard. Mulder finds black oil on Gautier's diving suit, and they review the underwater footage, which reveals the World War II-era fighter plane. Scully takes note of the plane's identification number, and the two decide to split up for further investigation. Scully will look into the plane's origins, while Mulder investigates Gautier, the sole survivor. At this point, Gautier's back home, searching frantically for something. His wife is overjoyed to see him return safely, but Gautier behaves strangely cold towards her. Sensing something's wrong, his wife tries to escape, but Gautier catches her sexy body. The scene cuts to Gautier's wife, who now seems disturbingly calm as she exits the house. It's clear she has also been possessed by the unknown life form. Meanwhile, Mulder arrives at Gautier's house, only to find it in disarray, with Gautier unconscious on the floor, his body covered in black god lotion. His memory is stuck in the moments from his dive, and he has no recollection of what happened after being possessed. Mulder finds a letter and documents in Gautier's house. According to the information, a woman commissioned the salvage of the plane. But why did she specifically request a French ship to recover it? Back to Scully. Using the fighter plane's identification number, she tracks down a naval officer who served during World War II. After gaining his trust, Scully learns a long-held secret. The officer and his crew had been hiding out on a submarine, evading Japanese destroyers. While submerged, they discovered the plane. It was at this point that some of the crew began suffering from severe burns. The officer suggested returning to base for medical treatment, but the captain insisted they continue their mission. The soldiers, unable to endure the pain, began to rebel, prompting the officer to lock the hatches and safely navigate the submarine back to port. Unfortunately, most of the crew died on the return trip, leaving only 7 survivors. Meanwhile, Mulder traces the woman to Hong Kong. It turns out the woman had commissioned the salvage of the plane because she had obtained highly classified information. The source of this information was the former FBI agent Alex, who had once been a member of the mysterious organization. Alex had defected and was now being hunted by the group. The information was stored on a disk containing alien investigation files, and both the mysterious organization and Mulder had believed the disk had been destroyed in an explosion. Just as Mulder attempts to retrieve the disk, the organization arrives, and a fierce gunfight ensues. At that moment, Gautier's wife, now fully possessed, suddenly appears to flex her sexy figure. Her body emits a strange, intense light. After the light fades, everyone present is severely burned, but Mulder and Alex manage to escape unscathed. Mulder intercepts Alex at the airport and asks him about the whereabouts of the disk. With no way to escape, Alex finally admits that the disk is in a storage locker in the United States. He then hands Mulder the key to the locker. Mulder suggests that Alex wash his face in the restroom before they head back together to retrieve the disk. Mulder waits outside. At this moment, Gautier's wife also enters the restroom. When Alex sees a woman enter the men's bathroom, he's about to show his usual lecherous expression, but before he can act, Gautier's wife pushes his muscles against the wall and rubs up against him. Later, Alex exits the restroom expressionless, and it's clear from his stiff demeanor that the unknown life form has transferred to him. He walks alongside Mulder without a word as they prepare to head to the United States. The story concludes with Skinner still investigating the murder of Scully's sister. As a result, he becomes a target of the mysterious organization. After being shot, he's rushed to the hospital, and Scully receives the news of the attack. In this story, the French ship was initially hired to salvage the plane, but they never expected to find a living person inside it. This person, however, is already possessed. After encountering the diver Gautier, the entity inside the person transfers to him. From the later developments, we learn that the entity is an alien life form, in the form of a black, oily substance. It had possessed the plane's pilot decades ago, but being trapped at the bottom of the sea, hadn't found another host until now. It survived for decades by using the pilot's body without oxygen. We can deduce that it is the source of the radiation that burned the crew. Once it possessed Gautier, it released powerful radiation, causing the crew to be injured. The mysterious organization had already documented this alien life form in a secret file, but the file leaked and ended up in the hands of Alex. As for why the entity pursued Alex all the way to Hong Kong and took possession of him, it seems its goal was to get the disk with the alien files that Alex had. The alien probably didn't want the information about itself to be exposed, so it sought to possess Alex to retrieve the disk. The story flashes back to the World War II-era submarine. The reason the captain refused to return was because he too had already been possessed. After being knocked unconscious by the soldiers, a black, oily substance began to flow from his mouth and nose. This was the alien life form's true form. The oily substance then returned to the ocean floor. Back in the present day, Mulder, with the now possessed Alex, returns to the U.S. to retrieve the disk containing the alien files. Along the way, they are intercepted by the mysterious organization. During the chase, Mulder crashes his car and loses consciousness, while Alex is abducted by the organization. They demand to know the disk's location, but Alex emits a powerful radiation burst that instantly burns the organization's agents to death. Meanwhile, Mulder sees a flash of bright light before being rushed to the hospital. When he wakes up, Scully is by his side. Previously, their superior, Skinner, had been ambushed by assassins sent by the mysterious organization and was hospitalized in critical condition. Scully discovers that the person who injured Skinner and killed her sister is the same assassin, and she resolves to track him down and uncover the truth about her sister's death. Meanwhile, Mulder brings in the diving suit worn by Gautier in the previous episode. He realizes that everyone who has been possessed by the alien shares one thing in common: a layer of black god lotion on their bodies. This lotion is actually just regular crude oil, harmless on its own. The alien uses this oil as a medium to possess its hosts. Mulder enlists the help of his 3 friends to locate Alex's safe, only to find that the disk has already been taken. It turns out that the possessed Alex had taken the disk himself and handed it over to the higher-ups of the mysterious organization, namely the Smoking Man. The organization then held a meeting to discuss the incident. They reveal that decades ago, a UFO crashed into the sea, near where the fighter plane had gone down. It's likely that after the plane crashed, crashed, the alien life form from the UFO took possession of the pilot's body. After the UFO crashed, the smoking man secretly recovered the craft and hid it in a secret location. From here, we can infer that the alien life form has been working to possess Alex in order to trade the disc for information about the UFO's hidden location. Mulder contacts one of the high-ranking members of the organization. Mulder hopes to get answers from him about Alex and the disc, but the high-ranking man refuses to reveal anything. However, he does mention that the smoking man has sent assassins to kill Skinner, who is still in the hospital. Upon hearing this, Mulder immediately calls Scully to warn her. She rushes to protect her superior, where she faces off against the assassin sent by the organization. The assassin was the one who mistakenly killed Scully's sister. As a professional, Scully refrained from taking personal revenge on the assassin. The assassin was then taken into police custody, and from him, they learned that the possessed Alex was at an abandoned missile base. Mulder deduced that this base was likely where the recovered UFO was being stored. They made their way into the abandoned facility, which extended deep underground and was enormous in scale. At this point, the mysterious organization's forces also arrived. The two of them fled through the base and reached the far end, where a large red door stood. Just as they were one step away from the truth, they were caught by Smoking Man's forces and taken away. Smoking Man stood before the red door, slowly lit a cigarette, but didn't approach. Instead, he turned and left. The camera zooms in, and behind the door, the possessed Alex is writhing in pain. He's lying on a triangular-shaped alien spacecraft, with the alien life form inside him flowing out from his mouth and nose. The black oil-like substance that makes up the alien life form quickly seeps into the ship's interior. In the final moments, Mulder and Scully return to their original posts, and Skinner has made a full recovery. Scully visits her sister's grave and places a flower. While they manage to catch the person responsible for her sister's death, the killer was murdered in prison before they could extract any information. The mysterious organization staged the death to look like a suicide, leaving the two of them frustrated that they couldn't uncover the mastermind behind it all. The scene shifts to Alex, who, now rational again, repeatedly bangs on the red door, shouting for help. He cries out in agony from behind the door, but who can hear him now? The scene shifts to a man shopping for supplies at a supermarket. He picks up a large quantity of energy drinks from the beverage aisle. At the checkout, he casually grabs a magazine. Suddenly, a group of FBI agents burst in and arrest him. It turns out the man is a criminal known as the Pusher. As he's escorted to the police car, the Pusher remains calm, striking up a conversation with the officer driving the car. He compliments the officer's blue uniform, and even though the agent with a small mustache seems a bit annoyed, the Pusher keeps repeating the word blue to the driver. At that moment, a blue truck drives by. In a bizarre turn of events, after the Pusher repeatedly brainwashes the officer with the word blue, the truck mysteriously disappears in front of the officer's eyes. The officer, seemingly hypnotized, slams on the gas and crashes into the truck. The crash kills one agent and injures another, and the Pusher immediately flees the scene. The surviving agent seeks help from Mulder and Scully. The Pusher is a hitman who has committed a series of murders, but the victims all appear to have died by suicide. They've pinned the blame on the Pusher because he's very bold, often leaving clues at the crime scenes on purpose. Mulder suspects the Pusher can hypnotize his victims. The officer involved in the crash was likely hypnotized through psychological suggestion, which caused the accident. Since the Pusher has already escaped, the immediate goal is to track him down. Mulder learns that the Pusher is obsessed with magazines about samurai and ninjas. He finds a pile of such magazines and finally discovers a small classified ad in one of them. The ad lists a public phone number, which was recently used to contact a golf course. Mulder deduces that the Pusher may be hiding at the golf course. Sure enough, the Pusher is calmly playing golf when he spots the arriving SWAT team. A lone SWAT agent wanders off to a corner and spots the Pusher. The Pusher hypnotizes the agent, douses himself with gasoline, and approaches Mulder with a lighter. Just as the SWAT agent is about to set him on fire, Mulder and Scully intervene, preventing any serious consequences. Perhaps the strain of hypnotizing the SWAT agent drains the Pusher's energy, and he collapses at the scene, where Mulder arrests him. However, he laughs and says he will be acquitted. At trial, despite Mulder's best efforts to convince the judge, no one believes that hypnosis can be used to kill. All the victims have been ruled suicides, so the Pusher is found not guilty and released immediately. This encounter seems to intrigue the Pusher, as he now views Mulder as an equal opponent. Mulder watches helplessly as the Pusher swaggeringly walks out. Scully investigates the Pusher's background and learns that he once applied to be an FBI agent, but failed the psychological test. The examiners found him to be overly arrogant, so he was rejected. The Pusher frequently boasts about his supposed training in Nepal and Japan, claiming to be a skilled samurai, though in reality he has never left the country. The scene shifts to the pusher entering the FBI headquarters. He's written himself a pass, which he wears around his neck, and walks freely into the archives room. The archivist is still nursing injuries from a recent robbery. The pusher hypnotizes her and convinces her to pull some personal files for him. At that moment, Skinner enters the archives room. He isn't affected by the hypnosis and immediately takes control of the suspicious pusher. But the pusher hypnotizes the archivist, making her believe Skinner is the robber who attacked her. She immediately pulls out pepper spray and starts attacking Skinner. It's unclear whether she's truly hypnotized or if she's using the opportunity to beat Skinner intentionally. The pusher seizes the chance to escape. Afterward, the archivist sincerely apologizes to Skinner. Strangely, the pusher didn't take anything except for a printout of Mulder's personal file. It seems the pusher has now set his sights on Mulder, seeing him as a worthy opponent and wanting to learn more about him in preparation for their inevitable showdown. Mulder applied for a search warrant and took a team to the pusher's house, where they found his fridge packed with energy drinks. Scully also discovered that the pusher was taking medication, leading them to suspect that he has a brain tumor. Mulder theorized that the tumor might be the source of his ability to control others' minds. However, using this power drained him mentally, which is why he consumed so many energy drinks. While they were discussing this, the pusher suddenly called. The agent picked up the phone, and at the same time, the officers on site prepared their equipment to trace the call and locate the pusher. On the other end, the pusher started suggesting that the agent had cardiovascular issues and would soon have a stroke. To everyone's shock, the agent collapsed and died on the spot. Afterward, Mulder took the phone, and the pusher arrogantly told him that the agent was clearly no match for him. He then taunted them, saying that by the time they found his location, he would already be gone. However, the pusher had clearly overestimated his abilities, as after hanging up, he had to go to the hospital for treatment due to his brain tumor. Once Mulder discovered the pusher's location, he decided to go to the hospital alone to confront him. Fearing that the pusher might control him into shooting random people, Mulder didn't bring a gun. However, the pusher took control of the hospital guards and stole one of their guns. Scully, concerned for Mulder's safety, entered the hospital alone and found him being hypnotized by the pusher. The pusher was playing Russian roulette with Mulder, loading a revolver with a single bullet and taking turns pointing it at himself. Realizing that he couldn't match Mulder in any way, the pusher gambled with fate. After 2 empty shots, he gained control of Mulder, pointing the gun at Scully. Scully ran out of the door and triggered the alarm. The loud noise snapped Mulder out of his hypnosis. He fired a shot at the pusher, who was then injured. In the final scene, although the pusher didn't die, he fell unconscious and was gravely injured. Mulder explained to Scully that the doctors had suggested multiple times that the pusher undergo surgery to remove his tumor, but he refused. The pusher didn't want to live as a small-time nobody anymore. Even at the risk of his life, he wanted to experience the thrill of feeling like someone important. The scene shifts to an expedition team in South America discovering an ancient tomb. While conducting archaeological digs, they uncover a broken jar containing a skeleton that is over 1,000 years old. They report their findings to the leader of the expedition, who is excited about the discovery and eager to transport the skeleton to a local museum for exhibition. However, one of the team members, Dr. Alonso, disagrees. He believes the skeleton belongs to the legendary Amaru witch, and moving it could trigger a curse. The team leader dismisses his concerns and insists on taking the skeleton back. That night, the villagers hold an outdoor ceremony where they sit around and drink a concoction called ayahuasca. After drinking the ayahuasca, Dr. Alonso becomes disoriented and sees something slithering into the team leader's tent. He witnesses the team leader being killed by what appears to be a panther. Fast forward 3 weeks, and the witch's skeleton is now in a museum in Boston. During a night patrol, a security guard discovers that a museum employee has gone missing, leaving behind a trail of blood. He immediately reports it, and the next morning, Mulder and Scully arrive at the scene. They learn that the missing employee was responsible for the investigation and excavation of the witch's skeleton. With the team leader's earlier disappearance, this makes 2 people linked to the skeleton who have gone missing. A young employee named Mona leads Mulder and Scully to the skeleton and reveals that Dr. Alonso had also participated in the excavation. However, he has not shown up to work in several days. Dr. Alonso tells Scully that the disappearances are all due to the witch's curse. He insists that if the skeleton is not returned to its resting place, more people will continue to disappear. Scully is skeptical, believing the man's ramblings are a cover for his own involvement in the disappearances. Soon, a 3rd disappearance occurs. A museum employee experiences car trouble on his way home. When he opens the hood of his car, he finds bloodstains. Meanwhile, a pair of eyes watch him from the darkness. The man is suddenly attacked and dragged away by an unknown creature. Scully finds a dead rat in the engine compartment, and the bloodstains match the rat's. Due to heavy rain the previous night, all other clues have been washed away. With no evidence left behind and 3 disappearances to investigate, Mulder and Scully are at a loss. Scully asks Mona if she believes Dr. Alonso is responsible for the man's death, but Mona defends him, insisting he had nothing to do with it. The scene shifts as Mona visits Dr. Alonso at his home. He hasn't left in days and appears to be in poor condition. Mona finds him preparing ayahuasca again, and he claims that no more bloodshed should happen. He insists he's going to make sure the museum returns the witch's skeleton, but in his frenzy, he orders Mona to leave. Mona starts to worry about his mental state and begins to suspect his involvement in the deaths of the 3 doctors. She contacts Scully and arranges to meet with them to discuss a plan. After the call, Mona's dog begins barking incessantly toward one direction. Following the sound, Mona enters the women's restroom, where she finds the toilet overflowing with water. Upon opening the lid, she's shocked to see numerous rats crawling out. Mulder and Scully decide to split up. Scully goes to find Dr. Alonso, while Mulder goes to meet Mona at the museum. At Dr. Alonso's house, Scully discovers the ayahuasca and a journal. The man has written in his journal that after drinking ayahuasca, he witnessed the disappearances of the victims as they were dragged away. Meanwhile, Mulder doesn't find Mona, but does find Dr. Alonso, who claims that Mona is dead like a piece of shit, but doesn't know where her body is. He repeatedly insists that the witch's skeleton is responsible for everything. If he doesn't know where Mona's body is, how can he be so certain she is dead like a piece of shit? After Mona went missing, Mona's pet dog was also found dead at the museum. Upon examining the dog's body, they discovered a cat inside its stomach, and the cat had a mouse in its stomach. The cause of the dog's death was poisoning from rat poison. The logic seems to be that the rat ate the poison, the cat ate the rat, and the dog ate the cat. Combining this with the mouse body found in the museum employee's car and the rats in the museum bathroom, Mulder suspected that the rats must have emerged from the sewers. But what could have driven them to flee in such numbers? Before they could figure it out, they discovered that Dr. Alonso, who had been under surveillance, had gone missing. Based on the signs, it appeared he had been dragged into the sewer by some unknown force. Following the trail, they ventured into the museum's sewers, where they found the bodies of all the missing people. Like the previous victims, in the darkness, a pair of green eyes was watching them. The camera cuts, and we see that these eyes belong to a stray cat. As Mulder and Scully searched for an exit, the cat launched an attack on Scully, and soon a swarm of stray cats poured in from all directions. Mulder and Scully fled toward the exit and slammed a wooden door behind them, but the stray cats relentlessly pursued them. They found Dr. Alonso's body at the exit, and it seemed he had been dragged in by these cats. They moved his body aside, crawled out of the sewer, and then shut the exit behind them. Having escaped, they immediately contacted the police and fire department. Mulder believed that the witch's skeleton from 1,000 years ago had somehow controlled these stray cats to take revenge on the doctors and staff who had transported her remains. The cats dragged them into the sewer and killed them. In the end, because of the 5 deaths, the local government returned the witch's skeleton to the Native American tribe. The tribe then reburied the remains. Since the skeleton was removed, there have been no more strange occurrences at the museum. This is where the episode ends. But how did Dr. Alonso know that Mona was dead? Let's turn back to the beginning. Dr. Alonso had participated in a local tribal ceremony and drank a special brew made by the tribe. After drinking it, he saw the leopard attack the exploration team leader. So this brew allowed him to communicate with the witch. Later, he continued to brew this drink himself at home, which allowed him to witness the deaths of all the victims. However, because he didn't approve of the doctors bringing the witch's remains to the museum, he never intervened when he saw them being attacked. Unfortunately, the witch didn't spare him or the innocent Mona. His careless attitude, simply watching without action, led to his own death. The scene shifts to Chinatown, USA, where a lion dance team, accompanied by the lively beat of drums and gongs, weaves through the bustling crowd performing various entertaining moves. People's faces are filled with joy as they seem to be celebrating a special occasion. In sharp contrast, a young man walks through the crowd with a troubled expression, looking frantically around him before hurriedly darting down an alley. This is where he lives, but the door is marked with the ominous words, "Haunted House," and inside, a man is waiting for him. The man glares at him and tells him that once he's started, there's no turning back. Terrified, the young man stabs the man and attempts to flee, but when he looks back, he sees several masked men blocking his way. The scene shifts to a funeral home. An employee hears strange noises from the cremation room and notices that the incinerator has erupted into a roaring fire. Chicken screams and banging sounds can be heard from inside. Curiously, he moves closer to investigate and finds no roasted chicken, but the young man from earlier struggling in the flames. Mulder and Scully arrive at the funeral home. This marks the 11th similar case this year, with all the victims being Chinese Americans from Chinatown. Mulder notices a Chinese character written inside the incinerator, so he calls in a Chinese American officer, Glenn, to check it out. Glenn explains that the character means ghost, symbolizing the soul. They soon identify the victim and visit his home, where they find some traditional Chinese medicine and discover that a new carpet has just been laid. When Mulder lifts the carpet, he uncovers fresh bloodstains beneath. The man who had laid the carpet is named Shin, a worker at a carpet factory. Shin has a sick daughter, and from their conversation, it becomes clear that he is struggling to pay for her medical expenses. In an attempt to gather the money for his daughter's treatment, Shin is introduced to an underground gambling ring organized by a local gang. The game begins when a bespectacled man takes out 2 jars, one large and one small. The gamblers take turns placing their name cards into the larger jar, and Shin nervously places his in as well. The man draws one card from the larger jar, and the name comes up. The lucky man is overjoyed upon hearing his name. According to the rules of the game, the lucky man must then draw a card from the smaller jar, which contains cards labeled with 5 elements: gold, wood, water, fire, earth, and one card marked Z. The metal card labeled Z would win him the prize money on the table. If he draws any of the elemental cards, however, he would have to sacrifice part of his body, with each element representing a different organ. The lucky man had already lost an eye in a previous game. He shakes the jar above his head, hoping for either a fortune or a quick death. Unfortunately, he draws the fire card, which represents the heart. The lucky man is taken backstage, and Shin watches in despair, knowing that he might soon face the same fate. Afterward, a driver passing by a cemetery spots several people wearing strange masks. He calls the police, and they discover the lucky man's body in the cemetery, his heart removed and his body discarded. During the autopsy, Scully finds evidence of multiple surgeries on the lucky man's body. His kidneys, liver, and even his corneas had been harvested. They shift their investigation towards the illegal trade in human organs. However, Glenn warns them that this case is connected to the Chinatown gang, and these people are not ones to be messed with. A new gambling game starts, and this time, Sin's name is drawn. Sin's emotions are mixed as he hesitates and then nervously reaches into the small jar. Whether out of luck or misfortune, Sin draws the wood card, which represents the eyes. He is then taken backstage, where his cornea is removed. Though reluctant to help further, Glenn gives Mulder and Scully a clue: Sin, the worker from the carpet factory. Mulder finds the wood-labeled card in Shin's home, but Shin, under pressure from the gang, refuses to say anything. After Mulder and Scully leave, Sin's daughter asks about his missing eye. Shin lies, saying it was due to a workplace injury. His daughter, concerned for her father's health, tells him that she values his life more than her own. This deeply affects Shin, making him question what would happen to his daughter if he were to die in the game. Due to the clue provided about Shin, Officer Glenn faces retaliation from the gang. The words "haunted house" are written in blood on his door. Several masked men viciously beat him, but when Mulder and Scully arrive at the hospital, they find that Glenn has already discharged himself. Mulder checks Glenn's blood type and discovers that he has a rare negative blood type, which matches the blood type found under the carpet at the first crime scene, since negative blood types are extremely rare. Mulder believes that Glenn is part of the gang involved in the organ trade, and it turns out that the man who was initially stabbed at the beginning of the episode is none other than Glenn. Meanwhile, Zin had intended to quit the gambling game, but according to the rules, once you start, you can't back out, or you risk certain death. Pressured, Shin is once again forced to participate. Whether by fate or design, Shin is chosen again. Following the rules, he reaches into the small jar, gripping the small card tightly, unwilling to let go. His fate is no longer in his hands, as his life has been out of his control since he entered the casino. The man in black pries his hand open, revealing that Shin has drawn the fire card, which signifies he will lose his heart and die in the casino. But Shin tries to escape, but he can't move his feet. He is dragged backstage. Glenn, who has been quietly watching from the sidelines, knows about Shin's sick daughter. Over the years, Glenn has been collecting protection money from the gang and has turned a blind eye to the deaths of gamblers in the game. However, at this moment, his conscience finally stirs. Ignoring the gang's threats and his own unhealed wounds, he begs them to spare Shin. When his pleas go unanswered, Glenn flips the table and the small cards spill out, all of them marked with the fire symbol resembling bloody hearts. It's revealed that the entire gambling game was a scam from the start. The gang initially places the 5 elemental cards in the jar, but after a few rounds, they replace them all with fire cards. The unlucky players are then taken backstage where their hearts are removed and their bodies discarded in the wilderness. Mulder and Scully track down the organ trafficking organization, learning that the local gang often brings people in for organ matching. They follow the trail to a secret underground casino, but by the time they get there, Sin is already unconscious and strapped to an operating table. In a critical moment, Glenn bursts into the makeshift operating room and shoots the doctor. Mulder and Scully rush in and arrest Glenn along with all the participants. In the end, the severely comatose Sin is taken to the hospital, and with Mulder and Scully's help, his daughter finds a suitable bone marrow donor. Although it seems the case is closed, the key figure, Glenn, has mysteriously disappeared, as if he vanished into thin air. The scene shifts again. The unconscious Glenn is thrown into a cremation furnace. He slowly opens his eyes, and around him, the flames roar. On the furnace wall, a ghost character is written, mirroring the earlier scene where the young man was thrown into the furnace and burned alive. With that, the episode concludes. The scene shifts to a repairman repairing streetlights when a young couple drives by. Strangely, their car suddenly loses power and stops in the middle of the road. A bright light flashes, and the couple sees a UFO slowly descending. 2 extraterrestrial-looking beings approach, and the couple faints instantly. The aliens drag them out of the car, and just then, a triangular UFO appears and lands. From it, a monstrous creature is brought out. The 2 aliens look at each other, and one of them asks where this monster comes from. The next day, the couple is found in their car on the side of the road. They claim they were abducted but cannot remember what happened that night. The girl seems deeply traumatized and from then on sees everything as if it were an alien, often experiencing random nosebleeds. The police think the couple is just making things up and subject the young man to a lie detector test. Although he passes the test, no one believes their story, except for Mulder, who is convinced it's true. Mulder arranges for a doctor to hypnotize the girl. Under hypnosis, she recalls being taken aboard a spaceship where she and her boyfriend were put in strange clothes and restrained on an examination table. Several aliens observed them, seemingly arguing over something. The girl also mentions that the aliens tried to enter her boyfriend's mind to steal his memories. Mulder then asks the young man about his own memories. He recalls being locked in an iron cage with his girlfriend. He tried to open the cage, but it was too hot, and he quickly pulled his hand back. He also saw another alien in a nearby cage, smoking a cigarette. When the cage was opened, a mysterious force grabbed his chicken girlfriend. The alien, still smoking, covered its face and muttered that it's just a dream. Then, the young man was also taken, and the rest of the events are a blur. Scully believes the young man's memories are just fantasies. As Mulder and Scully argue, they receive a phone call from a man named the Repairman, who claims he saw a UFO on the night the couple was abducted and later encountered a man in black wearing a hat. The man told the repairman that what he saw wasn't a UFO, but Venus, and then left. The repairman writes down his experience and hands it to Mulder. He describes how he saw 2 aliens crouching on the ground, seemingly frightened, while a monster stood beside them. The repairman's logic begins to unravel as he rambles on. Mulder believes that although the repairman's account is incoherent, parts of it must be true. Mulder decides to hypnotize the girl again, but this time her story changes. She dismisses the earlier account of being abducted by aliens, claiming instead that she was kidnapped and hypnotized by several men who appeared to be military officers. Just as everyone is confused, another young man wearing glasses comes forward claiming to have seen an alien corpse. He says he found the body in the wild, and soon Mulder and Scully arrive at the scene. Afterward, the young man describes Mulder and Scully as madmen, saying Mulder was yelling like a ghost and Scully nearly attacked him. Soon, a man in black wearing a hat visits the young man's home and takes away the videotape of the alien body. The young man, like the repairman, seems delusional and incoherent. In truth, he did find an alien corpse, but the story he told about Mulder and Scully isn't accurate. Mulder brings the body back for an autopsy and discovers that it's fake. Someone had dressed as an alien. The impersonator is revealed to be a military pilot, and in a bizarre twist, he suddenly reawakens. Mulder chases after the pilot, and in a delirious state, the pilot grabs Mulder's collar, repeating that it's just a dream. When the pilot regains his senses, he explains to Mulder that he and his colleagues were ordered to impersonate aliens, piloting a newly developed military UFO to abduct civilians. These civilians were then taken to a military base, where they were brainwashed and hypnotized. The goal was to create public belief in the existence of aliens, to cover up some secret government operations. As the pilot speaks, he slowly lights a cigarette. He and his colleagues had planned to abduct the young couple that night, but during the operation, their vehicle crashed, and a real UFO appeared. This UFO abducted him, his colleagues, and the young couple. Before he can finish, military personnel arrive and take the pilot away. As he's taken, he mutters that he's doomed this time. That evening, when Mulder returned to his place, he found the man in black with a hat waiting for him in his room. The man told Mulder that the alien abductions were just a public deception orchestrated by the government and urged Mulder to stop investigating further. They then hypnotized Mulder, and when he woke up, his thoughts were disoriented and his memory was clouded. Just then, a phone call informed them that a UFO had crashed. The two immediately rushed to the scene and discovered that the wreckage was of the new military craft the pilot had mentioned to Mulder earlier. The two pilots who had been impersonating aliens died in the crash. However, Mulder still couldn't figure out where the third alien, the monster, had come from, as mentioned in the testimonies. And with that, this episode comes to a close. According to the pilot's testimony, the UFO the young couple first encountered was a military prototype, and the two aliens were actually him and another pilot in disguise. The triangular UFO and the monster that appeared afterward were the real aliens, and they were all abducted by them. The young man in the couple even saw an alien in a cage. From the alien's cigarette and the repeated phrase, "It's just a dream," it's clear that this alien was actually the pilot. When the girl was first hypnotized by Mulder, she recalled being strapped to an examination table with her boyfriend and hearing the aliens discussing something. This scene was real. So why did she contradict herself in the second hypnosis session? It was because she was re-hypnotized by the military. The military had been trying to fake alien abductions to manipulate public opinion and cover up government secret research. This research likely involves real aliens, as the girl had overheard the aliens discussing things. The military feared that she would reveal these real details, so they hypnotized her to erase them. The streetlight repairman also wrote in his notes about seeing two aliens crouched with their heads down next to a monster. From this, we can infer that the repairman wasn't lying. The reason his later testimony became so jumbled is because he too was hypnotized. Apart from the young couple at the beginning, the other two witnesses, the repairman and the young man with glasses, also showed signs of very confused logic in their accounts. The young man even described Mulder and Scully as madmen. However, all of them mentioned a man in black with a hat, which suggests that this figure was fabricated by the military during their hypnosis sessions. Even Mulder encountered this man at the end, implying that he, too, had been hypnotized. Finally, the crashed military UFO and the two dead pilots were likely part of the military's effort to destroy evidence. Before being taken away by military personnel, the pilot told Mulder he was doomed this time, which hinted that he was going to be silenced. He knew too much, and mere hypnosis wouldn't be enough to control him. The scene shifts to their superior Skinner receiving a divorce notice from his wife. It's clear that this news has left him in a very low mood. He refuses to sign the papers and heads to a bar to drown his sorrows. A blonde woman approaches him to flex her blonde body, and they immediately hit it off. After chatting for a while, they head to a hotel room together. The rest is implied, and they finished their smelly hormone yoga session in 2 minutes. Suddenly, Skinner wakes up with a start and finds the blonde woman in bed has transformed into an ugly old woman. He's frightened, but quickly realizes it was all just a nightmare. He turns to look at the blonde woman next to him, only to find that she's dead like a piece of old shit, her neck twisted at an unnatural angle. The police arrive, and Mulder quickly joins the scene. There's no sign of a third party entering the room, and the only fingerprints on the woman's body belong to Skinner. He's immediately taken into custody as the prime suspect. Scully conducts the autopsy on the woman, and as Mulder enters the room, she reveals that the woman was once a secretary at a law firm. However, she had been fired 3 weeks ago for working part-time in the sex industry. After finishing the autopsy, Scully goes to turn off the lights to finish up, but she notices a strange glowing substance around the woman's nose and mouth. Scully collects the substance and sends it off for testing. The next day, the two detectives visit the woman's apartment. They meet a colleague of hers, a brunette woman, and an elderly, disheveled madam. The madam tells them that the blonde woman had called her the night before, saying she was in the middle of a deal with a client, the very client who turns out to be Skinner. Mulder and Scully are taken aback by this information. They can't believe their superior would seek out the company of a woman from the sex industry. At this point, all the evidence seems to point to Skinner, and he's never offered an explanation for his actions. He posts bail and walks out of the police station alone. Mulder tells Skinner that the blonde woman was a prostitute. Skinner's expression shows that he didn't know this in advance. He thought he was simply having a chance encounter. Just then, Skinner notices a woman in a red dress from a distance. The woman in red is the same one he saw in his dream earlier. He rushes over to grab her, only to realize it's his wife, the very woman he's about to divorce. It seems the previous scene was a hallucination. Later, his wife sits down to talk with Scully. She admits that the two have been separated for over 8 months, and their communication has been minimal. However, she still cares deeply for him and believes he isn't capable of murder. Scully uncovers that Skinner had visited a sleep clinic recently. He told the doctor that he had been repeatedly dreaming of an old woman for the past few months. Could it be that Skinner accidentally killed the blonde woman while sleepwalking? Mulder, on the other hand, believes that the woman in his dreams is a demon described in ancient texts. This demon often appears in the form of an old woman in men's dreams and kills their wives. According to the texts, this demon also releases a glowing substance, similar to the one Scully discovered on the woman's face. But when Scully re-examines the body, the glowing substance is gone, and the sample she sent for analysis turns out to be an empty shell. Skinner has been suspended from work due to the ongoing investigation. His wife comes to comfort him, but when he refuses to open up to her, she leaves, feeling helpless. Later that night, Skinner falls asleep on the couch. He's woken up by a scream and looks in the mirror to see the woman in red once again. Moments later, the police knock on his door with terrible news. His wife has been in a car accident and is now in critical condition at the hospital. The police find evidence of the crash on Skinner's car, along with his wife's blood, and it seems there's no way for him to explain himself. Every time Skinner dreams of the old woman, something bad happens, and the evidence always points to him as the culprit. He wants to defend himself, but he has no idea what's going on. After more persistent questioning from Mulder, Skinner finally opens up. He reveals that years ago he was in a car accident in Vietnam, and ever since then, he's seen the old woman in his dreams. She never harmed him, but actually saved him during the accident. Recently, though, her appearances in his dreams have become more frequent, so he went to the sleep clinic for help. Mulder believes that the old woman isn't malicious, but rather protective. Her frequent appearances are likely trying to warn him of imminent danger. Mulder visits Skinner's car, which was the one involved in the crash with his wife. The airbags show the severity of the impact. Inside the metal film of the airbag, investigators find an image of a man's face, a face that doesn't belong to Skinner. This piece of evidence clears Skinner of the crime. Just as Mulder is about to submit the evidence, Skinner is already fired by the FBI, and the mysterious figure, the smoking man from the mysterious organization, watches from the shadows. After losing their protection, Mulder and Scully finally realize that everything was part of a conspiracy orchestrated by the mysterious organization. The two of them had been relentlessly digging into the truth behind the organization, opposing them at every turn. And whenever the organization tried to eliminate them, it was always Skinner who stepped in to help. So, they hired the blonde woman to seduce him using her blonde body, then killed her and used Skinner's car to run over his wife. The goal was to get Skinner mired in legal troubles, leading to his dismissal by the FBI. But here's the twist. The blonde woman at the beginning was hired by the mysterious organization. Now that their goal was achieved, would their next move be to silence her permanently? Just as Mulder and Scully were discussing this, they received a new report. The madam of the blonde woman had jumped to her death. Mulder was certain it was a murder. At the scene, they ran into the blonde woman's colleague, the brunette prostitute. The brunette, knowing that the mysterious organization would soon come for her, agreed to help Mulder. She lied, claiming she needed money to flee, and arranged to meet with the organization's hitmen. Meanwhile, Skinner, now fired, visits his wife in the hospital after her car accident. He reveals that his nightmares, along with the pressure from work, caused him to shut himself off emotionally, leading his wife to believe their marriage was over and prompting her to file for divorce. In truth, he still loved her. After pouring out his feelings, his wife miraculously wakes up, but to his horror, her face transforms into that of the old woman from his dreams. The old woman tells him she has something important to say. At the same time, Mulder realizes he's been outwitted. The organization's hitmen have already bypassed them and are now targeting the brunette. In a desperate moment, Skinner, for reasons unknown, arrives at the hotel and shoots the hitman dead. In the end, with the brunette's testimony and Mulder's evidence, Skinner's name is cleared and he's reinstated to his position. However, the hitman, having no identification, remains an unresolved case. As for why Skinner showed up at the hotel to kill the hitman, he keeps silent. He puts his wedding ring back on as he dives back into his new work, signaling that life moves on and the episode comes to a close. While Skinner's wrongful accusation is somewhat resolved, the origin of the old woman remains unexplained. But looking at the old woman showing up 3 times, along with the fact that the old woman is wearing the same red dress as his wife, it can be inferred that the old woman is actually his wife. Despite their communication issues and impending divorce, his wife still holds strong feelings for him. Her obsession manifests as the old woman, who appears to warn him whenever he's in danger. Earlier, Mulder mentioned that ancient texts describe a female demon who can release glowing substances in dreams. The glowing substance found around the blonde woman's nose and mouth could be the old woman's doing, attempting to prevent the blonde from harming Skinner. However, the old woman did not kill her. The final appearance of the old woman is because she knows the mysterious organization plans to kill the brunette to silence her. If the detective loses his key witness, he'll be buried under legal troubles. That's why, when his wife was in a coma, her obsession took the form of the old woman once again, urging Skinner to save the brunette. In the end, Skinner puts his wedding ring back on, symbolizing that he has come to terms with everything. This suggests that his wife has recovered, and the couple will reconcile and continue their life together. The scene shifts to a lake in a small town where a biology professor notices that the number of frogs is continuing to decline. He warns a fellow professor that if no protective measures are taken soon, there may soon be no frogs left. The other professor scoffs at the concern, asking who cares about the frogs. As he gets ready to leave, he realizes he's lost his pager. He returns to the lake to search for it and suddenly sees an unknown creature in the water which latches onto his leg. Despite struggling, he is eventually dragged under and drowned. Mulder learns about the local legend of the monster and drives 2 hours with Scully to the town, accompanied by Scully's pet dog. For years, the town has relied on the water monster legend to boost tourism. Many people camp out by the lake in hopes of catching a glimpse of the creature. There's even a shop in town that sells souvenirs, where the shopkeeper excitedly shares stories of the monster, claiming that many locals have seen it. It's these tales that have kept his business thriving. The scene shifts to a tourist fishing by the lake. As he reels in his line, he believes he's hooked a big fish. However, to his shock, it's not a fish he catches, but a body. Mulder and Scully quickly arrive on the scene and, judging by the clothes, identify the victim as a tour guide who had gone missing recently. The body is badly mutilated, as if something had eaten parts of it. Mulder believes the victim was attacked by the water monster, while Scully thinks the death was an accident, caused by the victim drunkenly falling into the water. After all, there are many fish in the lake, so it's not unusual for something to be eaten. That evening, the shopkeeper, wearing homemade shoes, tries to create a bigger spectacle by leaving monster-like footprints in the moldery ground near the lake to attract more tourists. But just a few steps in, one of his feet gets stuck in the muck. As he struggles to free himself, the water monster emerges from the lake, and after a few chicken screams, the shopkeeper is dragged under. The next day, Mulder finds the shopkeeper's hat and the boots he used to create the footprints by the lake, with bloodstains still on them. Mulder knows this is another attack by the water monster. Yet despite the danger in the water, there are still many reckless tourists willing to risk their lives. A young man, eager to join the trend, goes diving in the lake. Just minutes after showing off, he's eaten by the water monster. His friends on the shore immediately call the police. Looking at the mutilated body, Scully insists that the young man's death was caused by a boat's propeller, not the monster. Soon after, a photographer arrives at the lake with the intention of using meat as bait to capture photos of the creature. However, the monster shows no interest in the bait. While the photographer is distracted with his camera, the water monster lunges from the water and drags him under. This photographer had been stationed at the lake for years and had taken many photos of what he believed were sightings of the creature. Mulder believes there must be a key clue in these photos, but Scully remains skeptical, convinced the monster doesn't exist. So she leaves Mulder alone to take the dog for a walk. However, as they walk, the dog is suddenly dragged away by an unknown creature, leaving only its collar behind. This finally convinces Scully that the water monster is real. Mulder notices in the photographer's pictures that 5 years ago, the water monster's activity was centered in the middle of the lake. However, recently, its activity has shifted closer to the shore. He pinpoints a coordinate and, with Scully, rents a Tesla boat to explore the area. As they scan the waters with radar, they spot an unidentified object rapidly approaching their boat. In an instant, their boat is violently struck, causing it to take on water. The two are forced to put on life vests and scramble onto a nearby rock. The lake is full of danger under the cover of night. Cold and exhausted, Scully can't help but complain about Mulder. She grumbles that it's late at night, and he insists on risking their lives to rent a boat and search for the monster. Just then, ripples form in the water. They immediately raise their guard, standing up and drawing their guns. Thankfully, it's only a false alarm, just a duck swimming by. Mulder starts explaining his theory. He believes the water monster originally fed on frogs, which is why the frog population in the area has declined. After losing this food source, the creature started hunting humans, which explains why its territory shifted from the center of the lake to the shore. Mulder thinks the monster is extremely good at hiding, which is why no one has ever seen it. At that moment, they hear another noise. It's the biology professor from earlier. He had overheard their conversation and with a flashlight came to find them. They realize that the center of the lake isn't where the monster is anymore. By now, their boat had been crashed onto the shore, and they had been lying on the rocks, discussing what to do about the food shortage. They follow the biology professor to the shore, but as they turn around, the professor is bitten by an unknown creature. He didn't get a good look at the monster. Mulder immediately grabs his gun and runs after it. In the darkness, he shoots several rounds at what he assumes is the creature. After calming down, he realizes that the thing he shot was actually an American alligator. Mulder feels a bit disappointed, but at least the creature is dead, and the local authorities can close the case. He wonders if maybe he's been too obsessed with the water monster. As everyone leaves, the lake remains eerily still under the moonlight. In the middle of the lake, a creature resembling a dinosaur emerges from the water, then disappears, leaving only ripples on the surface. The scene shifts to a killer digging a hole in the forest. He drags the body of a man he just killed into the freshly dug grave and starts covering it with dirt, muttering angrily as he does. It seems the man he killed was a terrible person, deserving of his fate. After finishing the burial, the killer heads back to clean the blood off himself. But when he turns around, he sees a man in a denim jacket walking towards him, his expression a mix of amusement and something else. The sight of the man in the denim jacket seems to trigger something in him, and he picks up a shovel and swings it at the man. He then throws the body into the trunk of his car, planning to take it to a remote location to bury it once again. Unfortunately, his suspicious behavior attracts the attention of two police officers. To his shock, the officers have faces that are identical to the man in the denim jacket. The killer is disgusted by their appearance and immediately rushes at them. The officers stun him with a taser, and as he collapses, the world around him seems to distort. The officers' faces shift from the denim-jacketed man's to their original faces. The officers open the trunk and discover the body of the man in the denim jacket. But when they look closer, they realize it's not a man at all, it's the killer's wife. The realization hits the killer hard as he comes to his senses, and he is overwhelmed with grief and regret. The scene shifts, and a mysterious man meets with Mulder, handing him a newspaper clipping. The article is about the case of the killer, and the mysterious figure asks Mulder to investigate it. Following the lead, Mulder tracks down the killer, who is now in a psychiatric hospital. Mulder speaks with the attending doctor, but the doctor can't offer much of an explanation, only mentioning that the killer may be suffering from a form of delusional disorder. As they're talking, the killer suddenly starts shouting as if he's been triggered by something on the news. He had seen a report on a notorious war criminal. Mulder and Scully then visit the killer's house, where Mulder notices a technician outside fixing the TV antenna. Meanwhile, Scully discovers several videotapes inside the house. The killer has been recording all the TV news broadcasts over the past few months. Mulder and Scully each watch the tapes. While Mulder doesn't notice anything unusual, Scully finds that the man repeatedly watched a news story about the war criminal during the time he committed his murders. She believes that repeatedly watching the report on the war criminal led the man to hallucinate, seeing his wife and others around him as the war criminal, which pushed him to commit murder. Mulder dismisses her theory as unfounded, telling her it's better to get some sleep. Scully, however, stays up late watching more tapes. Perhaps due to the overexposure, she begins to experience her own strange hallucinations. She sees Mulder smiling and sitting in a car with the smoking man from the mysterious organization, handing him a tape. From that moment on, Scully becomes paranoid, convinced that Mulder is in league with the mysterious organization. Soon after, another murder occurs. A woman is doing housework while watching a shopping channel on TV. Suddenly, the image on her screen seems to distort, and she walks over to her window, where she sees her husband lying in a rocking chair, having an affair with a blonde woman. Enraged, she grabs a rifle and storms outside. By the time Mulder and Scully arrive on the scene, the man is dead. However, the man wasn't the woman's husband. He was just her neighbor. The woman had mistaken him for her husband, and the blonde woman was actually just a golden retriever. The poor neighbor had simply been lying in his own yard, playing with his dog, when he was shot for no reason. As in the previous case, the woman's house is found to be full of videotapes. She had been recording the shopping channel broadcasts for several days. Mulder discovers that, just like in the last case, a technician from a local cable company came to fix her TV antenna after the incident. Strangely, when the technician sees Mulder, he gets scared and drives off. Mulder climbs up to inspect the antenna's distribution box and, sure enough, finds a golden-colored component inside. Mulder takes the component to his 3 friends, who identify it as a signal jammer. This device had inserted hidden messages into the original TV broadcasts, though what those messages were is still to be determined. Mulder immediately tells Scully about the situation, but Scully, having watched so many of the victims' tapes, is increasingly affected. Her symptoms are getting worse, and she no longer trusts Mulder. She keeps questioning him, even suspecting that someone might be eavesdropping on their phone calls. She yanks out the phone line and starts frantically searching her house for listening devices. Mulder knocks on Scully's door, but to his shock, Scully shoots a few rounds at the door. Before Mulder can react, Scully has already fled. Unable to find Scully, Mulder is feeling increasingly anxious. Just then, his friend calls with a major discovery about the signal jammer. They've found that the jammer inserts a red-green signal pattern into regular TV programs. This pattern has a hypnotic effect on viewers, putting them in a trance. But Mulder, having watched these tapes himself, wonders why he wasn't affected. The reason is that Mulder is red-green colorblind, so he didn't notice the patterns at all. This is why he avoided the hypnosis. Had he been affected, it's likely that both he and Scully would have ended up the same way. Mulder later finds Scully hiding at her mother's place. At this point, Scully is convinced that Mulder is part of the mysterious organization and even suspects that Mulder is responsible for her sister's death. Mulder is completely blindsided by the accusation. After some persuasion from her mother, Scully agrees to go to the hospital. Short-term treatment helps her recover, and she describes her experience as feeling like the whole world was out to kill her. Mulder learns from Scully's doctor that Scully's serotonin levels were too high, which could have caused her to become agitated and paranoid. However, this was never mentioned by the killer's doctor earlier in the case. Mulder contacts the killer's doctor, only to find that the doctor has disappeared. All that's left at his apartment is a cigarette butt, leading Mulder to suspect that the mysterious smoking man had been there. It turns out that the doctor was also working with the mysterious organization. Using a phone number the doctor had frequently contacted, Mulder tracks down an address where the doctor and the technician who installed the jammer are sitting together. Just as Mulder is about to arrest them, the mysterious organization's henchman arrives, having already killed the two. The henchman, working for the organization, also seems to want Mulder to uncover the truth before he does, but every time Mulder is just one step too late. The henchman criticizes Mulder before leaving the scene. With all the key witnesses silenced, the case is left unresolved. At the end of the episode, the henchman meets with the smoking man, who asks how Mulder got involved in the case. The henchman says he doesn't know, but from the look on the smoking man's face, it's clear he's starting to suspect him. This episode reveals the mysterious organization's involvement. They first sent an operative to bribe an employee from the wireless company to install the jammers in the victims' TV receivers, using them as guinea pigs to test whether they could hypnotize ordinary people into doing extreme things. After discovering that Mulder was investigating, the organization used fake doctors to mislead Mulder and Scully, making them think that the killer's killings were caused by delusional disorder in order to cover up their twisted experiment. The different outcomes for each murderer are explained by the fact that the jammer amplifies the subject's existing fears and anxieties. Mulder had investigated the killer's case and learned that he had been driven to kill by his hatred of war criminals, particularly one infamous criminal he had seen on the news. The second case involved a woman whose husband frequently traveled for work. Her fear of him cheating was amplified by the jammer, causing her to hallucinate the affair. As for Scully, the hallucination of Mulder conspiring with the smoking man stemmed from her deep trust in Mulder and her fear that he would betray her. Finally, there's the henchman from the organization. His superior is the smoking man, and it's clear that over the years he has helped the organization commit many heinous crimes. Although he secretly provides Mulder with information in hopes that Mulder will expose the organization, he is also pressured to continue carrying out the organization's orders. Unfortunately for him, Mulder always seems to be one step behind. From the smoking man's knowing expression at the end, it's evident that the henchman has been exposed and his time is likely running out. The scene shifts to an emotionally agitated man raising a gun in a restaurant, and the situation seems to suggest he might open fire on the innocent crowd at any moment. A calm, silver-haired man steps forward, speaking soothing words to him. He keeps telling the man that he's a good person, that he doesn't want to hurt anyone, and encourages him to put the gun down and embrace a bright new future. The man seems to buy into this, slowly lowering the gun. But just as he's about to comply, he notices the police outside, fully armed and ready to shoot him. In a panic, he fires wildly into the crowd. A sniper outside takes a shot and hits the man in the chest, causing him to fall, thinking he's about to die. But the silver-haired man approaches and presses his hand over the wound, and miraculously, the injury heals before their eyes. Mulder and Scully receive a report of a shooting at the restaurant, but strangely no one was injured. The man who was shot shows Scully the bullet holes in his shirt and explains that a man healed his wounds. He says the man who shot him has been arrested, and after the ordeal he has become a devout believer. The witnesses describe the silver-haired man as almost godlike, but by the time Mulder and Scully arrive, he's already gone. They're left puzzled by this supernatural event. The scene shifts. Mulder's mother visits a vacation cabin that has been abandoned for quite some time. There, she runs into the smoking man from the mysterious organization. They seem to know each other well. Through their conversation, it becomes clear that the smoking man is trying to get something important from Mulder's mother, but she refuses to hand it over. The exchange escalates into an argument, and in the heat of the moment, Mulder's mother suffers a stroke and ends up in the hospital. Mulder rushes there immediately, finding his mother in a coma. She can't speak, but scribbles the word palm in a notebook. Earlier that day, witnesses from the restaurant incident said the silver-haired man had used his palm to heal the victim's injuries. Mulder wonders if this is some kind of clue from his mother. Mulder reviews a videotape from the scene of the shooting. They manage to find the silver-haired man in the crowd, where police officers are interviewing him. Strangely, in the blink of an eye, the man vanishes right before their eyes, and in his place stands another man dressed the same. This man is identified as Smith, a worker at the Social Security office. Later, Smith is at work when a group of strange-looking men enters. These men are agents of the smoking man. Without making a fuss, they abduct Smith and imprison him. However, the next day, Smith shows up at the FBI, cooperating with their investigation. When asked about the shooting incident, he claims he felt like his soul had left his body and that he doesn't remember anything. He just wants the matter to end, saying he doesn't want it to affect his life. Mulder visits the vacation cabin where his mother had the stroke and meets the henchman from the mysterious organization. The henchman gives Mulder a photo of his mother arguing with the smoking man, revealing that he had been watching them from a distance. Mulder learns that the smoking man had caused his mother's stroke, and in a fit of rage, he starts searching through the house, looking for something important that his mother had hidden. After hours of searching with no success, Mulder collapses on the couch. He then pulls out the note with the word palm written on it and suddenly has an idea. Rearranging the letters of palm, he realizes it spells lamp. He rushes to the lamps in the house, smashing 2 of them before discovering a metal rod inside one of them. This rod resembles an ice pick, a weapon that can kill aliens. The smoking man visits Smith in prison. He mentions a secret plan, claiming that Smith has sabotaged it. During their conversation, Smith's appearance suddenly shifts, and he accuses the smoking man of harming innocent people for the sake of his own plans. The smoking man tells Smith that he'll be executed soon. Smith brushes it off, saying he's an alien and ordinary people can't kill him, and casually adds that he's been diagnosed with lung cancer. It's clear that the smoking man is deeply affected by this revelation. Mulder arrives at the FBI, already suspecting that Smith is an alien and that the smoking man will soon turn against him. However, Scully insists that Smith is still at his job. She then takes Mulder to Smith's workplace. Mulder tries to bring Smith in for questioning, but before they can even leave the building, Smith bolts. Just like in the video, he vanishes in the blink of an eye. He had changed his appearance and made a quick escape. Mulder then heads to the prison where Smith was being held. It turns out Smith is actually the alien bounty hunter from Season 2. Armed with a weapon, he enters Smith's cell only to find it empty. Smith has already left, and how he managed to escape from the heavily guarded prison remains a mystery. Since the smoking man has lung cancer, it's likely that Smith promised to cure him in exchange for his release. It's now late at night when someone knocks on Scully's door. It's none other than the escaped Smith. He claims he has some inside information for Mulder, so Mulder arranges to meet him at an abandoned factory. Smith reveals that the mysterious organization is running a flawless plan and claims to know the whereabouts of Mulder's sister, who was kidnapped by aliens when she was a child. Mulder says he has a weapon that can kill Smith, threatening him to help cure Mulder's mom in the hospital. Just as they're about to reach an agreement, the alien bounty hunter arrives. He's armed with a weapon that can kill Smith and is closing in on them step by step. And with that, Season 3 of The X-Files concludes. Through this episode, we learn that it's not just Mulder's father who is connected to the mysterious smoking man. His mother is also deeply involved with him, and the smoking man cares a great deal about her. We also discover that these aliens have unlocked a new ability, the power to bring people back to life and heal them. The bounty hunter is on a mission to hunt down clones hidden on Earth, and he's now relentlessly pursuing Smith. This suggests that Smith may also be a clone. However, unlike other alien clones, Smith can change his appearance at will and has healing powers. Smith claims to know the whereabouts of Mulder's sister. As we know, Mulder's sister was abducted by aliens when she was very young, and Mulder has spent the past 3 seasons searching for her. This time, Smith is sure to reveal something different to Mulder. This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.